Okay, tomorrow is your test on Chapter 7. It will include multiplying polynomials, like you did for homework last night on page 200. It will include factoring, like we did on the last factoring test. It will include solving by factoring, which we did on the last 2 homework assignments. And it's also going to have area and perimeter in terms of x, like the warm-up and like the quiz I just passed back to you. So please, let's make sure before you leave my room today that you know how to do all those things. Question? Yes, the test that you take tomorrow will be on your progress report grades. Yes. You'll just have to make it up when you get back. Okay, let's go through the answers to the warm-up. The area for number 1. Area of a square is side times side, right? So let's see what I'm getting for area here. Whoa. What I'm getting for area would be 25x squared plus 30x plus 9. How do y'all feel about that? Okay, what I got for perimeter was 20x plus 12. Please let me know if there are any questions. That's the multiplying part. That's the opposite of factoring. We're unfactoring for area. Okay, the circle. On a circle, you got to remember a couple of extra things. First of all, it's radius times pi. So you'd have to do 3x minus 7 times 3x minus 7, just like we did for the square. Instead of side times side, we're doing radius times radius. And then you also have to remember that pi symbol. So this is going to give us 9x squared minus 21x, then another minus 21x, and then a positive 49 at the end, which is 9x squared minus 42x plus 49. And I want to multiply all of that by pi, so I have to put it in parentheses. Has to be in parentheses and then a pi. Okay, and then the circumference of this circle is pi times d. Well, I didn't tell you the diameter. I told you the radius. So you're going to have to double that. You would get 6x minus 14. And again, all of that is supposed to get multiplied by pi. So you got to double the radius, if that's what I gave you. You got to find the diameter. And then you multiply it by pi. And it has to be in parentheses. Okay, so are we good with the circle then? Alright, guess what a lot of kids forget to do on triangle problems? For area, sometimes they forget to divide by 2. Area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2. So you would do 2x plus 3 times 2x minus 8. And then don't forget at the end, you've got to divide by 2. So let's do the multiplying first. That's going to give us 4x squared minus 16x plus 6x and then minus 24. And we've got to divide that by 2, don't forget. Well, that's 4x squared minus 10x minus 24. Now I've got to divide all those coefficients by 2. So my final answer for area here is 2x squared. Minus 5x minus 12. That's what you should have for the area of that triangle. Now perimeter is just adding up all the sides. In this case, all the sides were the same, so this was a special kind of triangle. It was an equilateral triangle. So the perimeter here would be 2x plus 3 times 3, because all 3 sides are the same. That's going to give you 6x plus 9. Alright, so are we good with triangles? Okay, the last one's a rectangle, and I went back to chapter 6 type dimensions. Area of this triangle, what is it? Length times width, which would give you 72 x to the 7th. That's the area. Now perimeter is adding up all the sides, and if you have like terms, you want to put them together. So 9x to the 4th plus the other 9x to the 4th would give you 18x to the 4th. On perimeter, your exponents don't change. 8x to the 3rd plus the other 8x to the 3rd would give you 16x to the 3rds. Why can't I put those groups together? They're not like terms. So the final answer is just 18x to the 4th plus 16x to the 3rd. Okay, so that set of problems could definitely appear on your test tomorrow with different numbers. Okay, Okay, now I also want to talk about the quiz I passed back to you. Did anybody have a question on 1 or 2? 1 or 2 was about the rectangle. This was the rectangle from your quiz. 1 or 2. Anything on 1 or 2? Let me show you some weird things that I'm seeing. Okay, for the area here, first of all, let's just go through this. Area would be length times width. This is what some kids are doing. 2x times 3x, they're giving me 6x. But what's 2x times 3x? 6x squared. Then you would get negative 4x, then positive 18x, then minus 12. So the area for this should have been 6x squared plus 14x minus 12. Okay, and then perimeter is add up all the sides. And this is what some kids did. They doubled the 3x minus 2. They doubled the 2x plus 6. So they doubled this, and then they put a plus sign in between them. That's a great first step. What's wrong with that answer? Yeah, they didn't finish. You got to add up all your sides. All the like terms have to get put together. The final answer here should have been 10x plus 8. You just add up all of the sides. Okay, so that was 1 and 2. Number 3 and 4 were the circle problems. Questions on the circle, 3 or 4? Nobody has a question on the circle. I know, Jason, we're going to get there. Calm down. All right. The next questions, 5 and 6, were about the square, area and perimeter of the square. Jason, number 5. Area is side times side. So 5x minus 3 times 5x minus 3. That's 25x squared minus 15x, and then you get another minus 15x, and then you get a plus 9 on the end. So that's 25x squared minus 30x plus 9. You got to watch out for your signs and your exponents and everything. Perimeter would have just been 5x minus 3 times 4, which is 20x minus 12. All right, and then we had a triangle. A lot of kids forgot to divide by 2. Base times height divided by 2 is how you find area. Any questions on the triangle? Perimeter of this triangle. Now for perimeter, you want to make sure you don't include the height. Perimeter is the distance around the outside, which would be 4x plus 6 plus 5x minus 2 plus 5x minus 2. Add up all the sides. That's giving me 14x plus what? 6 minus 2 isn't 2. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot this one. Yeah, you're right, plus 2. 6 minus 4 is 2. You're right. Sorry, Chris. Exactly. All right, so that was the perimeter of the triangle. How about area? Are we good with how to do area? Base times height, but then don't forget to divide by 2. Okay, so let's talk about your test then. You've got to know all the ones that we just went over, perimeter and area. Oh, wait, back to the quiz. Oh, I forgot about the last 2. Jason, you want to see, you want to see area of the triangle? Okay, so that would be 4x plus 6 times 2x minus 4, and then don't forget, at the end, you've got to divide by 2. All right, so that's 8x squared plus, 8x squared minus 16x plus 12x minus 24. Put these two together and you're going to get, what, negative 4x? Now divide all of that by 2. When you divide that by 2, your final answer is 4x squared minus 2x minus 12. That's your final answer. Okay, and then the last question. I forgot to put the last question up here. The last question was like a chapter 6 problem. It looked like, well, I didn't even give you a picture. I just told you that it was a square with a side of 5x to the 5th. Okay, so this is a square with no picture provided. Area would be side times side. 5x to the 5th times 5x to the 5th would be 25x to the 10th. And then perimeter, multiply that side by 4. 4 times 5x to the 5th is 20x to the 5th. Okay, now tomorrow's test. You've got to be ready for tomorrow's test. Anything that was on your factoring quiz, which I already passed back to you, so you better study that. You better make sure you know how to do all those problems, the factoring quiz. Also, page 200, we're about to grade 1 through 18, and then we're going to do the second half tonight for homework. So anything on page 200, 1 through 18, and then today we're going to do 26 through 37. All of that you better know how to do before you see me tomorrow. And then the other thing is area perimeter in terms of x, which I gave you back your quiz, and we've gone over several warm-ups. That will be on the test. Okay, yes, 26 through 37 is what you're going to do in class today in just a minute, and that's going to be on your test as well. Now let me talk to you about something that's also very important. Please, 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 please make sure you listen here, because every year I have 1, sometimes 2 kids who miss every question about factoring and solving because they either factor when they're supposed to solve or solve when they're supposed to factor. So real quickly, let's just go through a real quick review. I was also looking at the quiz that you guys took, and I wanted to pick out some of the questions that you most frequently missed. So let me just tell you, this could be a question on your test tomorrow. Now, without even knowing what the directions are you supposed to factor this, you think, or solve it? Right, why can't you solve it? Okay, we could solve this if it actually equaled something. Does this equal anything? No, so you can't solve this. Now, if it equaled 0, that's a completely different question. Now what would you do? You would solve it. Now, how do you solve it? By factoring. Okay, so yeah, we got to factor it, but the only reason why we can't solve this is because it doesn't equal anything. Factors should look like parentheses. Solutions should look like x equals 3, x equals negative 2. So you got to know the difference between factors and solutions. These are factors, and I'm just making these up. It has nothing to do with that problem. These are solutions. So please don't give me solutions when you're supposed to stop here. Or please don't stop here when you're supposed to give me solutions. How do you know? If it equals 0, your answer should look like this. Does this equal 0? No. So your answer should look something like this. And the directions will tell you as well. The directions for this whole section will say to completely factor. It won't say solve. The directions for when I want you to solve will say solve. And it will actually equal something. Okay, now, this is a question where the directions would be to completely factor. And let me talk to you about what some kids are still doing. They are taking out the GCF. GCF should be your first step always, whether you're solving, whether you're factoring, no matter what it is. You should ask yourself, is there a GCF? Then you've got to make sure that that GCF makes its way to your answer. You can't take out the GCF and then throw it away. What is the GCF here? X. That's part of my answer. I might as well go to my answer column right now and write down an X. There better be an X in my answer column. Okay, so factor out an X, and what I'm left with is 5x squared minus 42x minus 27. Okay, then I'm going to keep on bringing down that x, and I might want to write the rest of this in brackets. Now I've got to keep factoring. Jayla, turn around. This is your review. How do I factor this thing? How do you factor anything? A times C. Okay, so you got your calculator in front of you. What's 5 times negative 27? Y'all need to be doing this along with me, guys. I know how to do this. This is your review. What's 5 times negative 27? Okay, now we got to think of all the factors of 135 that could add up to a negative 42. You guys work and tell me when you get to the winning pair. You got a calculator right in front of you. Guys, this is not optional. You should be working right now. Yeah, it didn't take long to find the pair. It's 3 and 45. Now, which one has to be negative? Okay, so this is going to now be 5x squared minus 45x plus 3x minus 27. Now, in the first two, you want to take out a 5x, and you're left with x minus 9. Then you take out a positive 3, and you're left with x minus 9. Then take out x minus 9, and you're left with 5x plus 3. What has to also be in that set of answers? The x. That would be your answer column answer right there. And if you drop off that x, how sad is that to do all that work and then just leave off the GCF? And you're going to miss it. Okay, now, if the directions were just to factor, and if it didn't equal anything, we'd be done right now. And I see some of you are not listening to me, and I'm not going to feel bad for you when you factor when you're supposed to solve, or when you solve when you're supposed to factor. You better be listening. If this were my question, I would be done right now, and this is what my answer would look like. But let's pretend. Let's go back up here. What if this had been equal to 0, and the directions were to solve? So let's change the situation. Now my directions are to solve it. It has an equal sign, and I'm supposed to solve it. I would still do this whole process, but would these be my answers? No. I'd have to go one step further. I'd have to set each little factor equal to 0, and I'd have to keep solving. So what would my three solutions be? 0, 9, and negative 3/5. So sometimes you stop at the factors. When do you stop at the factors? When there's no equal sign, and when the directions say to factor. Sometimes you have to give me answers. When do you give me solutions or answers? When it equals something, and when it says solve instead of just factor. So you got to know the difference. All right. In a second, we're going to turn to page 200, and you're going to work on, in class, numbers 26 through 37. These directions are to solve. So this is what part of your test will be like. How do you solve? You got to do factoring to solve. You've also got to recognize things like this before I turn you loose on your assignment. Here's another question that was frequently missed on the factoring test. Let's turn it into a solving question. 24x to the third minus 6x equals 0. Take out the GCF, which is 6x. Okay, and you're going to be left with 4x squared minus 1 equals 0. I still have kids who have no idea what to do with this. That's the difference of two squares. You got to recognize it when you see it. That's the easiest thing in the world to factor. The b is missing. The 0x in the middle isn't there. There's 0 x's. That means that the middle term canceled out. This is a perfect square. This is a perfect square. You don't have to guess and check. You don't have to do that whole process. You take the square root of each one of these. One's a plus and one's a minus. Now, if this didn't equal 0 and all you were asked to do is factor, then we'd be done. But we got to take it one step further because the directions here are to solve. So what are my three solutions going to be then? 0, positive 1/2, and negative 1/2. That's an example of when you actually go one step further and give me the solutions. And that's a very typical question you could see tomorrow. Okay. No, they won't always have an answer of 0. This problem had an exponent of 3. Let me tell you when you will always have an answer of 0. If you have a GCF in the problem, and the GCF had a letter in it, then yes, that's when your answer will be 0. This is why. You set each factor equal to 0. 6 times some unknown number is 0. What does that unknown number have to be? It has to be 0. 0 divided by anything is 0. And then if 2x minus 1 equals 0, you move the 1 over, you divide by 2, and that's how you get 1/2, and so on. Okay, but if that GCF wasn't there, like if there wasn't a GCF of 6x, then the answers would have just been 1/2 and negative 1/2. Okay, so that's what you're going to do in class today, and I will give you the answers to this before you leave, but I want you to get as far as you can. How are you going to get credit for this assignment? By showing your work. Everybody should get 100 on this. We're going to do that in class in a minute. Right now we have to grade homework. So get out page 201 through 18.